Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Yes, listening.
Your voice is
yes,
clear,
okay, we will start
sir.
the second session.
Yes, sir. Uh,
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we are
Can you
going
listen?
to kindly mute your video and audio. Thank you. Second session. Now we have Dr. A. Manuel Stephen. He is senior principal scientist working in CSR Secre. He has vast experience in the field of lithium-ion batteries and electrolyte. Mainly his main area is focus on electrolyte of the lithium-ion batteries. And also he was worked in the many battery systems. He was the recipient of JSPS fellowship from the year 2000 to 2001 and the postdoctoral fellowship from the University of Duke, USA in the year 2001 to 2 and Prineful fellowship South Korea from the year 2005 to 6 and Raman fellowship Italy 2012 to 13. His vast experience and he is collaborate with many foreigners and he has come up with a very novel innovative electrolytes for the lithium ion batteries. With these brief introductions, now I call upon Dr. A. Manuel Stephen for his lecture. Thank you.
Very good morning to all. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Good morning, sir. Yes, sir. Audible.
morning, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Audible.
Thank you.
You are
I'm Manuel
audible, sir.
Stephen, working in the battery division of Central Electrochemical Research Institute. The title of my talk is Lithium Sulfur Batteries, a Futuristic System. My presentation encompasses on the following topics. The first one is I'm going to discuss about the importance of battery research. Why should we do research on batteries? Then origin and types of batteries, lithium ion and lithium sulfur batteries, their bottlenecks, their advantages, and how can we conquer these challenges, and finally with a summary and outlook. So the demand for energy is expected to be double in 2030 and triple before end of the century. The battery researchers get demand from all sectors, from the transport sector to electrify all the gasoline engines, from the electronic sector to minimize your laptop computers, the size of your laptop computers and the mobile phone. Apart from this, we also get demand from the society because 30% of the African villages remain unelectrified, uh, and apart from this, we deposit 3 into 10 power 6 tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for every hour. So in order to meet out the demands from all sectors, we mainly depend upon the two systems. The first one is windmill and the second one is solar energy. But the windmill is seasonal because we cannot energy during the summer, and the solar light is intermittent. We cannot extract energy during the night time. But even if we have to store the energy. So we need a device. And very recently, that one of the largest solar plant was built in Tamil Nadu, which can provide power to 1.5 lakhs, 1.5 lakh homes. The cost of the plant was approximately 4,500 crores. But however, even though we are able to extract huge amount of electricity from the sun and windmill, we are not able to store all the extracted energy. So these fuel cells, supercapacitors, and lithium batteries are considered as strong contender for the energy conversion and storage devices for the energy conversion and storage. But I'm not going to talk about the fuel cells and supercapacitors. I'm going to talk about lithium batteries, especially lithium sulfur batteries. See, you cannot imagine a world without batteries. In our day-to-day life, for our mobile phone, laptop, computers, and power tools, even for electric vehicles, bike, so we need a battery. So what is a battery? Battery is a system or a device comprising two or more electrochemical cells connected either in series or in parallel or depending on or in both depending upon the requirement of the individual end user. An electrochemical cell is the device which converts the chemical energy into electrical energy. See, the development of lithium ion battery that what we are using has not been developed in a overnight. In 1791, Galvani, a physician and an anatomist, a medical doctor, when he was dissectioning a frog, he tied the one end of the rock with an
Hello, sir.
iron rod. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Pardon?
Sir, one of my colleagues, she is waiting in the lobby for around half an hour. Mrs. Vandana Dikshit from Kendriya Vidyalaya, Palwal. Sir, please admit her. She just because her chat box was not working, so she left and again tried to rejoin. But now she is waiting in the lobby. She just called me up. So Vandana Dikshit, could you please let her in, sir?
Yeah, she's doing it now. She's not there, it seems. Got it. Yeah, she has admitted. Hello? I'm admitting all the persons. Yeah, she has already admitted. Hello? Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible. Kindly continue.
Yeah. Can I continue?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
You can continue.
Sir, you are audible,
Yes,
sir.
yes, sir.
I was just saying that one of my colleagues, she's been able to rejoin again. She's waiting in the lobby, in the meeting lobby.
He has been
I was just
admitted.
requesting you to let her.
The lobby.
He has been
Yes, sir.
admitted.
Is there? I have admitted.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
I'll admit everyone. You don't worry.
Continue, sir. Please, sir.
Please proceed.
Yeah. So in 1791, Galvani, a physician and an anatomist, he is basically a medical doctor. When he was dissectioning the frog, he tied the one end of the frog with an iron rod, and when he touched with the another one with a copper frog. So the muscles got twisted. So he proposed that animal muscles are capable of producing electricity. And in the year 1800, Volta, an Italian scientist, rejected his proposal. And then Faraday proposed some laws, and then still we are using it. So batteries can be broadly classified into three major types. The first one is primary batteries, that what we are using in our pentas, that you can discharge and discard upon your usage. The second one is that what we are using in laptop, computers, and mobile phone, that you can reuse, you can recharge and use it for 1,000 times or 2,000 times. It depends upon the system. The third one is reserve batteries. Here the key components are kept away from the batteries. For example, you can keep either the electrolyte or one of the electrodes, and whenever you want, you can activate the system. It's called reserve batteries, and this is widely used in the for the different purpose. So all the battery systems will have three components. First one is cathode, where the reduction process is taking place, where it accepts electrons. The anode is an electrode where oxidation is taking place, removal of electron, and the electrolyte is a material that separates both electrodes from short circuiting. At the same time, it allows the ions to move from the both electrodes rapidly while you charge and discharge your battery systems. So these are the commonly used battery systems. The lead acid battery, nickel cadmium. Of course, nickel cadmium is banned now because of the highly toxic nature of this cadmium. Now nickel metal hydrides are used, lithium ion, lithium polymer, nickel ion batteries, and so on. But each battery system, for example, these nickel ion batteries are widely used in railways. Nickel metal hydrides are used to start the aircraft engines. Lead acid batteries, of course, we are using in UPS and to start our vehicle, automobile applications. So the each battery systems have their own advantages and disadvantages, and the performance of any battery systems are judged by these 6 parameters. For example, the first one is single cell voltage. If you measure the potential difference of a pentacharge cell, it varies from 1.2 to 1.5, and there are some systems it will show 0.9 volts. And if you measure the voltage of a lithium ion battery, it shows 3.6 volts. That is called single cell voltage. Now another thing is power density and energy density. I will explain in the last. And the cycle life is the number of times you charge and discharge your battery systems. For example, if you charge in the night and discharge the whole night, then it's called one cycle. For example, all lithium ion batteries can last for 1,000 cycles. That means you can use for 3 years. And the shelf life is nothing but if you assemble a cell and keep it in the shelf for 10 years, nothing will happen for the lithium ion batteries. But some of the primary cells, the electrolyte will come out. Probably you might have seen in your pentacharge cells, after 1 year, the electrolyte will come out. So this is called the shelf life, and the capacity is denoted by ampere hour per kilogram. That is the amount of charge that can be stored. Now I am coming to the energy density and power density. See, you can use the lithium ion batteries for your laptop computers and your mobile phone, but that cannot be used to start your vehicle or for the UPS at present. And similarly, the lead acid batteries which are used to start your vehicle and for UPS purpose cannot be used for the applications of your laptop. You can use it, but the thing is the laptop weight of the laptop is maybe 0.5 or 1 kg, but the lead acid battery weight will be around 10 or 15 kg. So the energy density of lithium battery is very high when you compare the lead acid battery, whereas the power density of lead acid battery is very high when you compare with the lithium ion battery. So this is the difference between the energy density and power density. If you compare the cell voltage, specific capacity, power density, shelf discharge, and cycle number, the lithium ion batteries stand first. And this is the photography which was taken in 1920. The person using on the side is the battery system was used to for communication system, and in the year of 2000, the size of the mobile phone was reduced because of the high energy density of lithium ion batteries. So if you open any lithium ion batteries, that will have 3 components. The one is the cathode and another one is anode, which is separated by an electrolyte, porous polymer by a polyolefin membrane, and which is soaked in a non-aqueous liquid electrolyte. This generally the liquid electrolyte is composed of some carbonate solutions and a lithium iron phosphate, lithium hexafluorophosphate dissolved in that. So when you discharge and you charge, the lithium ion will migrate from the anode to cathode. As for example, this is the schematic diagram. When you charge, the electrons will come inside, so the lithium ion will migrate from the cathode to the anode. When you discharge, the lithium electrons will come out, the lithium ion will migrate from the anode to cathode. So this is the process taking place in the lithium ion. But even though we are using in all our day-to-day life lithium ion batteries, there are, you might have heard about several accidents that happens due to the process called thermal runaway. Due to unexpected chemical reactions, the temperature of the lithium ion batteries will go up. So when it goes beyond 150 or 160, the electrolyte will get, the membrane will get short circuited and it will melt and it will get short circuited. If you look at the surface morphology of the polypropylene separator, it will appear like this. And if you take the cross section of this membrane, it's a 3-layer membrane. So when the temperature of the battery system goes beyond 160, the middle one, the middle one will melt and the pores will be blocked. So this system will not be allowed for charging and discharging. So the battery system will be safe, because another thing is the lithium will form. For example, when you charge and discharge, the lithium dendrite will be formed in the form of needle or in the form of mossy-like structure or tree-like structure. The needle-like structure is very sharp and it will puncture the membrane, and the anode and cathode will be short-circuited. So this is a major disadvantage of the lithium-ion batteries. So the present system, the lithium-ion batteries, what we are using, has some poor safety issues. For example, sometimes it is explosive. For example, Samsung Galaxy 7, even for a very long time, it was not allowed in the aircraft. Then second one is the energy demand. It has low power density, as I said in the beginning. It cannot meet out the demand from the transport sector to replace the gasoline engine. And the third one is it's expensive when you compare with other nickel ion batteries or other systems. And fourth one is the poor abundance of lithium metal. Now, the battery researchers have two options. The one is lithium air batteries, and the second one is lithium sulfur batteries. If you look at the unique feature of lithium air batteries, the energy density of a gasoline engine is 13,000 watt-hour per kg. But even if the gasoline engine produces 13,000 watt-hour per kg, it can deliver only 12.6% of the energy to the wheels. Remaining 78% goes as waste. Therefore, but in case if you replace the gasoline engine by an electric engine, 90% of the energy can be transferred to the wheels. That is the main advantage of electrifying the vehicles. So the current lithium-ion batteries can deliver only 400 watt-hour per kg. So on the other hand, if you oxidize 1 kilogram of lithium metal, that is capable of producing 11,680 watt-hour per kg. So the lithium air battery has a unique property which can deliver 11,680 watt-hour per kg theoretically. But even if you realize 15% of the theoretical capacity, you can simply replace the gasoline engine by lithium air batteries. But unfortunately, there are so many technological and scientific problems remaining that can be resolved beyond 2050 or 60. So in near future, you cannot use lithium air battery. So this figure compares if you electrify your car with the different battery systems. For example, the first one, lead acid battery, you can operate your car only for 50 kilometers. And with the lithium ion battery, you can operate your car for 160. And if you employ lithium air batteries, you can go beyond 550 kilometers. But it is ruled out till 2050. So the next option comes to the lithium sulfur, where you can operate your car for more than 400 kilometers for a single charge. So these are the advantages of lithium sulfur batteries. That's what we are working on it. So it's environmental friendly, the low cost, less toxic when you compare with cobalt, and its theoretical capacity is 1,672, and the energy density is 2,500 watt-hour per kg. So we have started working on that. In spite of these advantages, the lithium sulfur batteries have several disadvantages too. The poor conductivity of elemental sulfur is unsuitable if you as such use the elemental sulfur. Then second one is shuttling of the polysulfides between the two electrodes, because I'll tell you. Then the poor interfacial properties of lithium metal, and the last one is self-discharge. This is a very serious issue that prevents this system from commercialization now, because if you charge your mobile phone, the charge will remain for a longer time. Even for 3 days, nothing will happen. Maybe you may lose 2 or 3% of charge. But of lithium sulfur, if you charge it within 36 hours, it will lose 40% of its charge because of the polysulfide shuttling. I'll explain. So this is a major issue of lithium sulfur batteries, self-discharge. As I said in the beginning, when you discharge your lithium ion battery, the electrons will come out and the lithium ions will migrate from the anode to cathode. But in the case of lithium sulfur batteries, this is the left hand side is the cathode. It contains sulfur, elemental sulfur and carbon. On the left hand side, the right hand side, you can see the lithium metal, which is acting as an anode. When you discharge, the lithium ions will come and interact with the sulfur atoms. So Li2Si will form. And the next step is when it reacts with the again lithium and Li2S6 is formed. So it and finally it forms Li2S2 and Li2S. So in the case of lithium ion battery, the only lithium ion is migrating from the anode to cathode. But in the case of lithium sulfur, not only lithium ion is migrating. In addition to that, sulfur atoms are also formed because of the formation of the polysulfide. This is inevitable. So, as I said in the beginning, there are four major issues. One is the poor electronic conductivity of sulfur, and the second one is the undesirable shuttling of the polysulfides along with the lithium ion, and the third one is poor interfacial property, and the fourth one is self-discharge. So that we have taken the first issue, we wanted to improve the poor conductivity of the elemental sulfur. So what we have done is that we found that there are several reports. They encapsulate sulfur in carbon nanotubes to improve the electronic conductivity and to prevent the volume change. But that encapsulation of sulfur in CNTO or graphene, it's very expensive and tedious also. So what we have done is we have taken some sisal fibers and was spiralized with the different pore agents, and we have carbonized, and this was the pore structure of the sisal fiber. Then after that, we have impregnated sulfur inside, and then we have used as the cathode. So we have confirmed the presence of sulfur by XRD and also Raman. Then 50% of the sulfur was impregnated. That was measured from the TG, thermogravimetric analysis. And we have used the cathode for the lithium sulfur batteries, and we have charged and discharged at different C rates. For example, C by 20, we got more than 1050 milliampere per gram, and when we charge and discharge at faster rate, the capacity was reduced to 500 milliampere per gram, and we were able to cycle this system for only 100 times. So after that, we could not get good results. Then what we have done is, instead of spiralizing the system, we have added NgAl2O for magnesium aluminate, graphene and sulfur hybrid electrodes. Here, each component functions for a specific reason. For example, that magnesium aluminate is used to improve the stability of sulfur. At the same time, it also captures the polysulfides and prevents from the shuttling due to its electrostatic attraction. And of course, the graphene facilitates for enhances the electronic conductivity, and sulfur involves in the oxidation reduction process. Here, this is the thermogravimetric analysis. We have measured the content of sulfur here, and we have identified the presence of the element using elemental analysis, and we have confirmed the presence of sulfur with XRD and other characterization techniques. And again, we have subjected this cathode for charge discharge studies, but we could go beyond. When we used sulfur, we sisal carbon, we were able to go only 1050. But in this case, we have, if you look at this figure A, we have gone up to 1400 milliampere per gram, and again we could go up to 100 cycles. We could not go beyond that, because not only the poor electronic conductivity of sulfur, not only that is the main only advantage, It is one of the advantages. So in the same way, we have then finally we have measured the zeta potential. It shows the positive side. So because of the electrostatic attraction, it attracts the polysulfides. So it improves the cycling performance of the lithium sulfur batteries. And parallelly, we have also synthesized some supermoleculars, and that can be seen. It's called Violagen. If you are interested, you just contact me by email. You can get it from my first slide. Then I think I can clear your doubts if you have. And again, we have made the supermolecular interactions. We have synthesized some supramolecules and used in the cathode material to improve the performance of the lithium sulfur batteries. And finally, instead of MgAl2O4, we have also synthesized MnFe2O4 seated on graphene and used with the sulfur composite cathode materials. And if you look at this one, we were able to go up to 1400 watt-hour per kg, and we could go only 50 cycles. So I would like, and we have prevented self-discharge also up to 90 hours. Usually that up to 36 hours, it will lose 30% of its charge. But here we could store the charge at 2.48 volts up to 90 hours. So that is a significant advantage of using our cathode materials. And so I would like to conclude, we have explored 4 different types of cathode materials to improve the electronic conductivity of sulfur. The first one is activated carbon. We have just impregnated sulfur inside, which was capable of delivering only 1200 milliampere per gram, and we could achieve 600 milliampere per gram at 1C rate. And we have, when we used magnesium aluminate graphene composite, we could get 4400 milliampere per gram. And although we used Violagen as supramolecule, it suffered from poor rate capability. We could not charge and discharge at high C rate. So we could get over only 100 cycles. But now we focused on the second part. How can we minimize, or how can we suppress the shuttling of the polysulfides? Because the shuttling is a very serious issue which prevents this system from commercialization and also eventually leads for the self-discharge. So the suppression, the polysulfide shuttling can be suppressed by 2 ways. One is, instead of the non-aqueous liquid electrolyte, you can introduce a solid polymer electrolyte, or you can introduce a perm selective membrane which can capture the polysulfides and can allow only the lithium ions. So these are the 2 ways that can be employed. So at first we have introduced a solid polymer electrolyte. Now I would like you to recall, when you charge and discharge, the lithium ions are migrating from the cathode to anode. But in this case, the lithium polysulfides are migrating. So if you put a suitable material instead of the porous material, you can simply prevent the polysulfides the migration. So what we have done is, we have simply replaced the non-aqueous electrolyte with a gel electrolyte. So this gel electrolyte has several advantages, because it not only prevents the shuttling of the polysulfides, there is no dissolution of polysulfides because there is no solvent, because this is solid. And the second one is no leakage of electrolyte. And the third one is flexible geometry. It can be bent because there is no liquid. So these are the main advantages of the solid polymer electrolytes for lithium sulfur batteries. So what we have done is, we have used the bisphenol A, ethoxylate and dimethacrylate, and we made a solid polymer electrolyte. And we have made some characterization studies like transport number and compatibility with the lithium metal anode. And finally, we have subjected these gel electrolytes between the electrodes, and we were able to do only 75 cycles, and the capacity fade was very fast, so we could not use it. So what we have done is, the second thing is, we have taken the porous membrane, that's what we are using in the lithium ion battery, and we have coated with suitable perm selective membranes. For example, we have taken metal organic framework, so we have coated this one, and we have analyzed the charge discharge studies. And the black one is uncoated membrane. It was able to deliver 1400 milliampere per gram initially, and when we coated with suitable membrane metal organic framework, we could go up to 1500, and we have gone up to 25 cycles. All the 25 cycles have exhibited higher discharge capacity than the uncoated membrane. And we have measured the shuttle current. We found very lower shuttle current for the coated membrane, the red one, and for the uncoated membrane, the shuttling was more. So we got a lot of self-discharge and all. This is the schematic diagram of the MOF coated membrane. So when we use the MOF coated membrane between the two electrodes, because of the electrostatic interaction, that all these sulfides, lithium polysulfides, are attracted by the MOF surface, and the cycling efficiency was improved. And similarly, we have synthesized barium titanate, and we have grafted the barium titanate. So we have used barium titanate, graphene oxide, and we have also used graphene oxide separately, and we have compared the charge discharge studies. And we have measured that contact angle for different systems, because when the contact angle is low, the wettability of the electrolyte is higher. So normally the cell guard membrane, which is made up of polyethylene or polypropylene, or have poor wettability, that will not soak the electrolyte. So when we coated with graphene oxide, barium titanate graphene oxide, it shows lower contact angle. That means the wettability is higher. Then we kept the membranes at a high temperature, 125 degree for 1 hour. And for the barium titanate graphene oxide, the stability of the membrane was very stable even after storing the membrane at 150 for 1 hour. Whereas that cell guard membrane, which is what we are using in the lithium-ion battery, got folded, the figure A and B. Whereas the activated carbon graphene oxide, it was folded to some extent, but when we coated with barium titanate graphene oxide, was highly stable even after storing at 125 degree. And when we measured the discharge capacity, even after 40 hours, when we stored for 40 hours, the black one, the last discharge at 2.2 volts within 10 hours, whereas the barium titanate graphene oxide was stable at 2.5 volts even for 40 hours. So this is a significant advantage of using the perm selective membrane. Then finally, what happened when we used EIO NH2 at SiO2, an efficient and effective perm selective material, with this MOF was widely used to purify water. So what we have done is we have taken this MOF and coated on the polypropylene separator, and we have measured the conductivity and the wettability and all, and this membrane was stable up to 400 degrees centigrade. And when we used as a separator for lithium sulfur batteries, we were able to get 1400 milliampere per gram when we charge in it. Whereas the black one, which is uncoated, was able to deliver only 900 milliampere per gram when we charge and discharge our lithium sulfur batteries. And we have gone up to 550 cycles, and only the EIO coated exhibited higher discharge capacity than the uncoated and SiO2 coated membranes. And when we measured that the self-discharge of the system, and we were able to store 2.7 volts even after for 40 hours, whereas the SiO2 last is charged after 10 hours, and it could store only 20% of the charge. And this is evident from that our self-discharge studies. And finally, then what we have done is we have stored the lithium sulfur cells for a longer time. The left hand side figure A shows for the uncoated membrane. So the first day when we charge and discharge, the cell was able to deliver only 900 milliampere, and after 5 days it was able to deliver only 500, and after 10 days when we charge and discharge the system, that uncoated membrane was able to deliver only 300. Whereas in the C, the last one, the first day it was capable of delivering 1300, and after 5 days it was able to deliver 1000 milliampere per gram, and after 10 days we got nearly 900 milliampere per gram. So this is the major advantage of coating the membrane for lithium sulfur batteries, which not only prevents that for shuttling of the polysulfides, at the same time it prevents the self-discharge. Then when we measure the zeta potential, we got nearly 56 millivolt, so 56.42 millivolt. That means the zeta potential is capable of capturing all the negatively charged polysulfides due to the electrostatic attraction between the two systems. And this is the charge discharge of the DuO1, and we have finally made the XPS analysis whether that polysulfides are captured. Yes, of course, the A shows the MOF coated one. It's always, sorry, the B shows, because when we made the XPS studies on the a membrane, we found the traces of lithium polysulfides using our XPS data. So this is the schematic diagram how that MOF or how the polysulfides are attracted by the coated MOF, metal organic framework. So now I would like to conclude the second part. The composite cathode, among the systems coated, the UiO 66NH2 SiO2 coated membrane has suppressed the shuttling of the polysulfides efficiently, and the lithium sulfur cell was able to store 98% of its capacity even after 40 hours. And when we applied the solid polymer and gel electrolytes, it suffered from poor rate capability because of the low ionic conductivity of the membrane. So now I am coming to the third part, that lithium electrode and the electrolyte poor interfacial properties, how the lithium metal can be replaced. See, lithium is so attractive for lithium metal batteries, but it's because it's highly electronegative, and its ionic radius is 0.5 angstrom, and it has low atomic weight and very light metal. But the problem is it has poor interfacial properties with the electrolyte. So these are the basic slides with the anodic reactions, and it shows why the lithium metal is so attractive. It is capable of producing 3800 milliampere per gram. But when you oxidize 1 gram of lead, it can give only 258 milliampere per gram. So which is almost 10 times higher than that of the lead acid battery. But unfortunately, when we use lithium metal as anode, but because of the instability against the electrolyte, dendrite will be formed. So the dendrite will be formed in the form of needle-like structure, and it will puncture the membrane and it will get short circuited. So we are still not able to use lithium metal as anode, and we are not able to commercialize. And there are some alternative to lithium metal. For example, you can use carbon. That's what we are using in our lithium ion batteries now. And the other system is called conversion electrodes. So examples are SNS, CO3O4 and all. And alloys can also be used, and composites like CNT, SNS, and graphene can be used. But in 1999, 2000, even in the early of 2000, the conducting polymer electrodes, for example, polypropylene, polyaluminil were used as electrodes. But those conducting polymers are highly unstable in the non-aqueous electrolytes because it degrades very fast. It loses its molecular weight. So, and the last one is silicon. It's the last choice. But we can use silicon as anode because it has higher theoretical capacity than lithium metal anode, and the abundance is very huge on Earth and it's very cheap and safety. However, it goes 280% volume change when you use as anode, and this is high. This is also unstable solid electrolyte interface it forms. So then finally, people have started working on SiOX, which is a non-stoichiometric material, silicon monoxide, and it's called silicon monoxide and the derivatives. So it has a theoretical capacity of 1850 milliampere per gram. So we are still working on it to replace the lithium metal anode system. But the main advantage of using silicon monoxide is when it is charged and discharged, lithium oxides and lithium silicates are formed during this one. So when we use it, the formed Li4 and SiO4 will act as a buffer and prevents the volume expansion, which is better than silicon element. So we are still working on that. But unfortunately, when you use SiOX, the binder is another problem because the conventional binder which is used to bind the electrode materials, we are using PVD, polyvinyl fluoride, but that cannot be used as binder for silicon monoxide because the van der Waals force is insufficient to hold the particles. So you can work on the polyacrylic acid or CMC, carboxyl methyl ester, or a blend of these two components. So these are the challenging issues on the anode side. So you have to find a suitable binder to hold the particles. This is another major issue on the lithium sulfur batteries. Now the question is, are we going on the right direction? Will lithium sulfur batteries be commercialized in a near future for e-mobility? These are the two questions. Yes, of course, we are going on the right directions because the lithium ion batteries are available in 3 different forms. The first one is 2032 type. Probably you might have seen when you use it. 2032 indicates 20 indicates the diameter of the coin cell, and 3.2 is the width of the is the width of the cell. And the pouch cell you can fabricate according to your requirement. And the left hand side is 18650 cell at the 650 height and 18 is the diameter. So it's called 18650 cell, and these are the 3 types commonly types of material batteries available.
Sir, your mic is muted.
So these are the 3 systems. But as I said in the beginning, there are 3 major issues. The one is the poor electronic conductivity of elemental sulfur, shuttling of lithium polysulfides between the electrodes, and third one is poor electrode-electrode interface. All the 3 things can be solved in a near future. But the problem is, when it is commercialized, it can be commercialized only in the form of pouch cells. It cannot be commercialized in the form of 18650 because for lithium sulfur batteries we are using only lithium metal as anode. But the problem is the more hardness of lithium is very low, 0.5 only, whereas the copper is 3. So we cannot roll the lithium foil for commercial applications. That means it cannot be available in the form of 18650. It's a major issue of that lithium metal. And another one is sulfur area loading, that you have to quote 7 milligram per centimeter square with a sulfur content of 80%. And the electrolyte to sulfur ratio is also another problem, and negative to positive capacity ratio. All the six challenges have to be addressed before this commercialization. So we strongly hope this will be commercialized in another 5 years with higher capacity and for low cost. So the conclusions and outlook are, although the state-of-the-art lithium-ion batteries are considered as mainstay for electronic devices, it cannot meet out the demands from the transport sector, because you can achieve only 400 watt-hour per kg. You cannot go beyond 400 per watt-hour kg with the existing chemistry. So many scientific and technological issues have to be addressed in lithium sulfur batteries, lithium air batteries, as I said in the beginning. The performance of lithium sulfur batteries can be enhanced by optimizing the four metrics that I said: the sulfur ratio, electrolyte ratio, and by improving the electronic conductivity elements of Earth. Hybrid electrolytes composed of ionic liquids and carbonate solvents with suitable PAM selective membranes can also be explored. The poor interfacial properties of lithium metal anode leads to poor safety issues. Alternative electrode materials such as silicon monoxide can be modified and explored as anode materials. But these Si-based electrode materials are not compatible with a binder, so we have to work on the bifunctional binders which can bind the particles at the same time without affecting the electrochemical performance of the cell. Of course, the self-discharge of lithium sulfur batteries is a threatening challenge. It hampers the system from commercialization. So working on these aspects will be very exotic in the coming years. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any doubt, you can just message or you can ask me right now.
Participants, please raise your questions and clarifications about the topic. He will ready to answer. Please unmute your video and audio, then you can ask the questions. Participants, hello.
Sir, namaste, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, do graphene exhibit any magnetic properties, sir?
No. We don't measure any magnetic properties.
Okay.
We normally measure when we want to suppress the polysulfides, we want to see whether it's positively charged and negatively charged. We prefer to have some positively charged material because it can attract the polysulfides by electrostatic attraction.
Okay, sir.
We are more concerned about the cost of the material also.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, can we charge lithium battery using solar cells? And we can use it now if we are. We charge lithium battery with the help of solar cell.
Yeah, you can integrate. The problem is when you extract, that's what I said in the beginning, when you extract huge amount of current, lithium battery cannot use because it cannot be used because the power density will limit the system. For example, if you take a lead acid battery, you can charge and discharge at 100 C rate. But a lithium ion battery is meant only for the low current charge and discharge. And very recently, the people have started working on the fast charging. Maybe right now there are some hurdles, but maybe after 5 years, when that fast charging batteries are commercialized, and that can be a good option. Lithium ion battery can be a good option.
So there are more chance of blasting of lithium battery due to high charging fluctuations. So is it admissible to use lithium? There are no any other sources apart from lithium. sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, yes. Lithium battery will depend on climate.
Previously, we were discussing about this hydrogen cell, which we can use in future.
I don't have any idea about the scope of electricity generation from plants. As far as I know, honestly telling, I don't know. I have no idea. Generating, but there are some experiments even that school children they demonstrate extracting current from lemon and all, right? So plants, as of now, I don't know. Yes, of course. That climate is a major problem. Even the humidity also it plays because when the temperature is reduced, the conductivity will come down. So the efficiency of lithium-ion battery depends upon the climate also. That is sure. Yeah, of course, the transport number of hydrogen ions is much higher. Yes, that is true. That's what we are using in that fuel cell and other things. But we have to measure that voltage also, the OCV and other performance also. Because another thing is electrochemical coupling is also another problem. Yes, sir, our climate is conducive. That is true because we are in the tropical country, so we don't have any problem in using lithium-ion batteries. But when you go to countries like Switzerland or Sweden, the temperature, the outside temperature will be minus 20 or minus 40, and the humidity will be a major hurdle. So there could be some problems. But all the non-aqueous electrolytes are capable of working at low temperatures. That is, it's not an issue. It's not a major issue. Climate is for countries like India, it's a good one. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for persons. Thank you for your this session is went on well. You have kindly fill the feedback form. It is available in the chat box as well as in your WhatsApp group and email ID also. So please fill it up. In the afternoon we have meet the 2 p.m. the third session. After that 3:30 to 4:30 we have the concluding session, validatory functions. So thank you, and you are leave the meetings and you rejoin at 2 p.m. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for